Credit Union Broadcast Center. Our friend, our innovating motivator, Saul Kaplan from Business Innovation Factory is here, as he is on most Mondays, which we always enjoy. This is going to be a discussion about pushback on Innovation Day.
Okay.
So,
what else is new?
No, I think there's, we're starting to see some of the fraying of some elements of innovation. Let's talk about the Washington Post gets bought by Jeff Bezos, and he's the savior, and he's going to pour tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And according to folks that I know in the newspaper industry, he has literally poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the newspaper to modernize it, to make it a digital powerhouse, to strengthen it, to hire. This weekend, 400 plus members of their union band together and say, you're a rich guy and you're not paying us enough. Right. Very publicly, kind of a thumb in the eye, they said they've been negotiating with him for a year. This is a little bit of the people rising up on the master in the big house up on the hill. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think this is the least of it. If you're an innovator, if you're Jeff Bezos, you're accustomed to it. Everybody loves innovation until it affects them. Yeah. The minute it affects them, then let it be for the other guy, let it be for the other company, let it be for the other guy.
But this one's a little unusual in which there hasn't been layoffs at the Post. It's been, he's pouring capital in. They haven't seen it like the Providence Journal or the Denver Post, where the newsrooms have just been slashed to smithereens.
So first of all, he bought Washington Post
personally,
not Amazon. So let's be clear about what we're talking about here. Second of all, it's working. They're doing really well. Now, some of that is the political climate. That's low-hanging fruit for journalism everywhere, which is great. But let's look at what's gone on at the Washington Post. Beyond the market conditions. I mean, they made a huge investment in digital. Too slow for the industry, but it's actually working, right? Digital subscribers have doubled. Their visits, have increased by more than 50%. They made all their advertising targets. So what would you expect? You expect the employees to say, okay, you're a multi-billionaire. Like, we expect to be paid more money. This is normal. This happens. Now, I think one of the most interesting parts of this, the 400 of them signed this letter saying, hey, share some of that with us. And they should ask for that, right? And I'm sure they'll negotiate, where they're going to end up, like all entities do. But of course, our president has to get into the game. So POTUS tweeted, I hope you all go out on strike at the Washington Post. And then immediately the group, the 400 of them that were represented by the union, came back and said, no, not so fast, Mr. President. We stand behind Jeff Bezos and what he stands for. This is an industry, that is under siege, right? And I don't mean politically. I mean from disruption. From disruption. Here comes somebody with deep pockets who buys it, actually starts to turn them in the right direction. And that letter actually started out, the 400 union employees. The first paragraph was, we are really grateful that you saved our ass, excuse my French, but they didn't say that, but something like that. Like, thank you for coming in and taking a stand, and being there for us. But, in capital letters, we'd like you to pay us more. If you think this is pushback on an innovator, this is normal stuff. Let's see where the negotiation goes. I think in the end, the employees should be pretty darn happy that they still get to do the incredible work they do at the Washington Post, right, in an industry that's collapsing all around them.
So a similar thing happened. A billionaire funded what was called DNA Info and the Gothamist, and it was supposedly for profit, but he was pouring in tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, on an annual basis. And it grew, and it became an important part of the fiber of New York. And also we opened DNA Info in Chicago. They unionized one day, voted. That next day he closed all three of those publications. Listen, I know there's a mantra that the Washington Post is now profitable. I think there's also a question of how much he's investing while they're getting profitable, and how much. It's a privately held company. We'll never know the answer.
You don't see the details.
So, is there is this? Are we really seeing it in its most boiled down conflict of, boy, oh boy, this disruption is absolutely going to see further conflict between worker and organization?
Yes, because I think, like with all disruption, it unsettles some of the way things have always worked, right? So this has to shake out. There's going to always be a normal tension, right, between management and labor.
Right.
Although I hate to cast it that way, right? But in the end, particularly, this has been going on forever, right? Where the labor argument is, look at those executives and how much money they pay themselves, versus how much they share. And this is all a negotiating ploy to get to the right balance, right? Without having a point of view that one side of this argument is right or wrong. This is the way it works. And when you're in the public sphere, like someone like Jeff Bezos is, expect those letters to come, expect them to be published so that everybody can be part of the discussion. You know what? I think it's healthy. I think we're going to continue to see it. I don't think it's anything particularly unique about this. I think in the end, that the fact that those same employees, right, and that same union came back and said, wait a minute, Mr. President,
we're not quite there.
We stand behind our leader, so we'll throw him under the bus when it comes to negotiating a little bit higher salaries and better benefits. But if you think that we're not grateful, for what this guy's done at Washington Post and for the industry, we're grateful for it.
A few weeks ago here, you saw a division related to Amazon, who had set up shop here as sort of supply chain support and moving materials. They got challenged by the Teamsters. The Teamsters went in there. They went to filed with the National Labor Relations Board. The National Labor Relations Board turned around and whacked the company. What did the company do? They packed up and moved to Hartford overnight, pretty much. Well, 60 days notice as they're required.
Anytime labor feels like its position and its leverage is being threatened, or any change in ownership is going to change that, it's a source of concern. And so they're going to work really hard, and they're entitled to work really hard on behalf of the people who are part of the union in order to get as much leverage as they can in the negotiation. And if it needs to play out in public, so be it. And that's a pretty common technique. You see that all the time, right? Where labor is not.
But they weren't messing around. They just literally out of town.
Yeah, but in the end, where's the real leverage here? If you all things being equal, you want to be with the innovator, you want to be with the market maker who's changing the dynamic, because they're going to grow and win, and the chance of making higher wages and keeping your job are higher there than they are in thinking that you're going to lean against it and go back to some old world, where people get paid more than what the company actually can afford to pay,
or wants to pay.
Exactly.
So last week we talked a little bit about how Amazon's starting to show their hand on how they're going to leverage Whole Foods. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. It was announced in the Boston market between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. 2-hour delivery. I don't understand how they can do 2-hour delivery from a Whole Foods in Boston where you can't get anywhere in Boston in 2 hours.
Drones. It's got to be drones.
But that's the game is on, and that's launching right away. An absolute killer for competitors, right? I mean, 2-hour delivery, I can...
it's not even just it's 2-hour delivery that's free, right? You order more than $35, which at a Whole Foods, it's some grapes,
that's one egg roll.
Over $35 order, 2-hour delivery free in these test markets, Boston being one of them. This just happened last week, so it'll be interesting to watch that. I don't think we've seen the last of that. I'm pretty sure they're heading towards doing this everywhere as we head through the rest of the summer. There's also a 1-hour option. When you got the dinner party and you absolutely need it, and you need it right now, it's $7.99. for delivery, same kind of order. A lot of people have been saying, wait, Amazon bought this a year ago. How come they haven't disrupted the whole grocery industry yet? How come it's taking longer? I look at that and say, just keep watching the movie. That's not how transformation happens.
Right.
It doesn't happen overnight. They're going to play with new capabilities and new offerings. They're going to play with the balance between improving the online experience, coming this way to be able to use the 400 plus Whole Foods, right? That's more than the warehouses that they have.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So they should be able to meet that 2-hour window, having those 400 distribution points, right? But it'll also go the other way. The experience when you actually go into a Whole Foods, I saw a statistic, this blows me away. 60% of Whole Foods customer base are already Amazon Prime customers.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right.
I mean, talk about the strategic advantage and how they keep adding more value to the customer experience, and it's going to make it harder and harder to play the game the traditional way, either as an online supplier, right, or as a bricks and mortar store. And that's what we've been talking about, the evolution of these models, the blended models that reach the needs of particular groups of customers, different price points, different services, right, and they just keep experimenting with it. So while the market is looking for that one size fits all breakthrough that's going to transform the whole industry, right, the way Jeff Bezos plays it is, let's do 1,000 experiments. Let's use these capabilities in lots of different ways. Let's make the shopping experience better in the store. Let's make the shopping experience better online. Let's blend the two of them together, right? Because all of these grocery online retailers, they haven't really been economic, right? They haven't really worked. So they've got to figure out how that model's going to work. I wouldn't bet against them, and we already know how much fear it's put into the traditional retailer.
Well, if you're some Port Clements market, I think it's down in Portsmouth, which is a very nice family-owned local market, it has got to just literally shake the foundation of your building. You've spent 3 generations building and having high-quality product and training and staff and everything else, and here turns around and somebody who was your loyal customer goes, God, I can just take care of that right before I leave the office, and bingo bango, so much for loyalty. And how do I compete with that? I can't amortize that technology.
You better be
that
experimenting with new ways to deliver value in that local community, because they're going to be there, right? And so what can you do that can't be replicated either online or with the big store in a larger community? So you better be experimenting with that or you're going to lose. You want to talk about a loyalty program, right? You mean when 60% of your customers are on Amazon Prime, I mean, that's going to be the best loyalty platform, known to humankind, right? And that spreads across more goods, not just food. I mean, it's going to spread across every industry, and you're going to have to compete with that. And instead of lamenting it, if you're not innovating now, you better get on with it or you're going to be disrupted.
And how far is Amazon going to go? We've talked about it within this sphere. You've got they're fighting for global domination. You got Tesla fighting for global domination, and they announced they're going to cut 9% of their workforce, thousands and thousands of workers, in an effort to get profitable. They want to explode on the street and really drive the value of that company on Wall Street. The average company that's over here in downtown Providence, how does that company even think about competing with these, giant brains who are fearless and have unlimited access to capital?
Well,
they can afford to make 1,000 mistakes, right?
Not only afford to make 1,000 mistakes, they don't even have to make money early on. So Tesla's a great, they're similar in some ways, right? How long did Jeff Bezos go before he ever made any money? And he had no trouble raising capital in the market to pay for all those 1,000 experiments, right? But even at Amazon, at some point, he had to start shifting and actually show a sustainable profit, right? To show that the multiple on his stock, was worthwhile. Now come over to Tesla and Elon Musk. 15 years this company has been in business and has never turned a profit.
No.
By design, just
Right.
like with Jeff Bezos. Well, all good things have to come to an end. You can only go to the capital markets so many times until you actually can show a sustainable profit, right? That is the return on that capital.
Right.
And so Elon Musk says, okay, we'll come back to to the Model 3 and the production piece of this, but he looks at his cost structure. He looks at how many times he's gone to the capital markets,
Yeah.
more than most mere mortals have been able to do, because people bet on him as a disruptor, as an innovator. But at some point, you have to actually show that you can turn a profit on the core business. And so he made a move this past week where he started to control the cost structure a little bit. He took out 9% of the costs, mostly people.
Yeah.
Right? Out of the workforce.
He may have taken more out of the
Right,
costs. We
right,
just know 9%
right.
of the workforce.
And he basically said, look, none of those people are involved with making our Model 3 production targets, because
Right.
that's the driver
Right.
of the future
And he's
of this business.
horrifically behind.
Right? And well, he just now, the reason the stock price went up was not just because he took money out of the workforce. The reason the stock price came back up, I think 40%, right, from its low this year, is because with credibility, they're getting close to this 5,000 cars a week production schedule, which was kind of the Maginot line. Like, we
Right.
got to get over this line. And the market believes him that he's now solved some of those scaling problems, right? But now he's starting to control the cost. He does not want to go back to the capital markets again, to do an additional raise.
Right.
So this will give him credibility to be able to take the capital that's been invested and start to move towards profitability, which is what he needs to do. So I think this is a normal thing. I think it's inevitable. I think he defied gravity to get to this point, right? Because good luck, if you wanted to raise capital and you couldn't show where the profit was going to come from,
Right.
good luck raising it. He's raised a ton of capital, right, and purposely didn't make money, just same way Jeff Bezos did. This is what innovation is about. If you are credible as an innovator and you can show that you have the credibility to reshape markets, capital will come to you and will be patient, right? And that's what we see here. So I don't think this is normal. Innovators face this all the time. The skepticism and pushback for what they do, but you watch the way these innovators behave. They're fearless. That you think this pushback is going to change what they're going to do in the case of Bezos and Elon Musk? I don't think so, right? But you have to play to the reality, and sooner or later, gravity brings you back to a sustainable business model that has a way to capture value, and then they'll keep doing it. They'll keep reinvesting and raising money based on the next vision, for the market.
So if I'm Nick, Ron, and Pete over at Cardi's, and I'm sitting there, and okay, a few years ago I started a mattress store, coming out of the Great Recession, with so many mattress retailers. What do I need to do in the thought process of reinventing and beginning to start to innovate? If I went into a Cardi's in Knightsville, Cranston in 1967, okay, it's bigger and it's fancier, but it's kind of a furniture store, and it was a furniture store then, and okay, there's more of them, but it's kind of the same experience.
Well, it's interesting. Some of those big superstores were the innovators,
right?
Just like they were in
absolutely.
other retail segments. If you look at the furniture business, I mean, you want to talk about margins.
Right.
I mean, from the design to the manufacture, all the way to your new bedroom set, right? The margins are incredible.
Right.
It happens to be big, bulky stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not a virtual product like a newspaper, right? So there's still a
Hard
physical product.
hard to drop by a drone.
So it's taken longer.
Right.
But if you look at all the steps of that process, to be able to design, new furniture, to be able to manufacture that with new materials, right?
But if I'm Nick, Ron, and Pete, listen,
Right.
Josh Fenton can go order a couch on Amazon,
Correct.
on Prime, and have it here within 48 hours.
So now this is where they're at. So they were able to innovate just by creating this big superstore within the region.
Warehouses, next day delivery.
They got efficiency, where they bought on volume. They put pressure on suppliers to get stuff manufactured just for them, at a lower price point that gave them more room to price. But that game is now they've got to go to the next game. You better get to the point where you understand the customer experience and you're thinking about new models, not just the big superstore bricks and mortar model, and they should be experimenting with that too, because if they don't, you can already start to see some folks that are playing with that. You look at just the mattresses, which is a lot of what they sell, right? And they turn those things over. Go look for innovative mattress companies. There's a dozen of them, that are building high-end brands, that are building mid to low ends, and you can buy them all online. They'll deliver them to you by tomorrow, right? And so they're going to be disrupted too. See, my point has always been, that nobody is immune to this. No industry segment, and just because you think you can make the argument that it's furniture, it's a physical product, no. People are looking at every aspect of that value chain, from the idea through the manufacturing to the creating demand, to fulfilling that demand through distribution, right? Everyone's looking at that value chain and trying to figure out, how they can disrupt it, right? So they can start, and you'll see a lot of startups there, but you're going to see some of the big players, that are going to realize that the disruption is inevitable and they've got to do something with it. So if I were them, I hope they have some experiments on different models to deliver customer value so that they're not caught flat-footed and those people end up losing their jobs too, like the rest of the big superstores did.
Is the economy being pretty decent, covering up for a lot of danger zones in industries like retail? When we see the economic shift, which invariably is going to happen at some point or another, are we just going to see this? Listen, we're seeing enough major retailers collapse the last 24 months at a record pace. Is it going to be cataclysmic of collapse of key sectors like retail, and then in other sectors you're going to see innovation explode for survival purposes?
Well, the ones that exploded were the ones where the product was more virtual, right? Those were the first, right? When you get into a lot of these other industries where there's actual physical products and big capital necessary, in order to make those products. It's slower there, but it's still going to happen, and you're going to see this happen over time. A lot of companies do what I call lean against it. Let's stop the disruptors, right? Let's be the taxi industry trying to prevent Uber from coming into our market. We see this in a lot of industries. Regulations that are just for the auto body industry.
Boston just passed functionally a tough ban against Airbnb. They really cracked down.
Which is the lean against. Which is the lean against. They try to do it off of safety. It's not in consumers' best interest. To be able to do that. That's nonsense. We can deal with the safety issues and should. But when it comes to the business model and how we make more options available to consumers, same thing is true in furniture. Same thing is true in every industry you want to talk about. This lean against, putting up a regulatory moat, I call it, so that disruptors can't get over the moat, You just saw Elon Musk do this really cool exchange, I think, with Warren Buffett, who said the way we value companies is how big the moat is, the barriers to entry. And Elon Musk swiped that, with the back of one of his hands and said, "You show me an industry, with a moat, I'll show you a target for disruption. If you think you can lean against it with a moat, or you think you can win because you can go past something at the General Assembly that'll slow it down,
not gonna
ultimately the consumer is going to win, and the consumer is smart enough to know when solutions are being withheld from them, for political reasons or because lobbyists were good at getting a regulatory moat in place."
Well, listen, thanks as always. This was a great discussion about the disruption backlash that we may be seeing. It's a wildly exciting time, and by the time tomorrow we'll have a whole new topic. This could be an afternoon show almost every day. Thanks as always. Last thing last, Biff, Who's
Yeah.
the big new exciting? What's
here
the
we
new,
go.
Who's the new shiny
quickly,
object?
Well, quickly, we want local people to be in the mix. So I don't know if you know Stephanie Ewens, local photographer.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I love her work.
Yeah.
We've always loved her work at BIF. Do you know this will be our 14th year? I think this is true. I think she's been a photographer kind of behind the scenes taking pictures of 13 years now.
That's
It'll be
great.
14 years. So finally we said, like, enough with her behind the scene taking pictures.
right.
I'm going to put her on the stage.
And she's gonna take
gonna
pictures of
share.
the-
Well, I'm
No.
sure she'll do that too, because it's a nice vantage point from the stage. But I want her to share her personal story of what's it felt like to see this, through the lens of the camera. And she's got all the footage.
Let me
right?
tell you,
So-
she did around our first or second year.
Yep.
She did a story of, and it was mostly stills with audio. About a tailor up on, I think, Broadway.
Okay.
And it's as beautiful a piece,
Yeah, she's
smart
fantastic.
a piece as you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll resurrect it and run it again on
Yeah.
Biff Week. So
Well,
that's a
I'm
great
really
pick.
I'm excited. We asked Stephanie. We weren't 100% sure she would like to, but she thought about it and she said, "You know what? I do have a story to tell, and I have all of these artifacts, these pictures.
Yeah, that's right.
Of 14 years of Biff. To looking at innovation through the lens of the camera.
That's
I
great.
think it's going to be a great story, and I love when local people represent in our mix.
That's great. Thank you as always.
welcome.
We'll be back tomorrow. Kate Nagel's got the afternoon. It is, we're out of budget week. We're into final week of the General Assembly. PAWSOX legislation getting revisited for the 1,400th time. Fights up at all the candidates running for governor. Lots of things going on. We'll see you back tomorrow. Thanks everybody for tuning into a busy day of business coverage on GoLocal Live. See you tomorrow. Thank you.